I am prepared to carry my cross if the need arises. My mind is clear. My conscience is clear.
All right, this is from our archives, Martha Karua there, and then also that was Minister of Education by then, William Ruto. Now, currently, this is what is the current state of play in Mount Kenya, where MPs are struggling to explain to the electorate what really happened with the finance bill. And you can see a man there looking at this editorial cartoon. This is Mount Kenya. And we have a member of parliament there who has gone to a confession box. And you are the priest now. As you can see, Wanjiku is a priest. He says, it's 8 months since my last confession. I'm in government serving Ruto. I never saw the bill, leave alone reading it. I passed it. And that is the Finance Act. Many of them have been saying they never read that particular bill. In fact, one of the legislators said the bill was akin to a Bible. It was such a tome and big. And he was saying, you know, even a pastor has not plumbed through the entire Bible. If you ask him, every nook and cranny of the Bible, as it were. So how would he or how would she have known what was tucked away inside the finance bill, really? So that is the current state of play as well regarding this. We shall be discussing, and this is what we're talking about. Most of the issues that have been raised by the courts were actually on the floor of the House. Maybe they were not given enough attention or debating time, and now we're going back on a vicious cycle regarding the housing levy. All right, over to you, Dr. Makali Mulu. If you want to comment on that, or you want to just continue with the question that was raised there.
No, let me comment on the issue of the land, and then we can come to this where the Finance Act is a Bible and the Member of Parliament is confessing that they never read it. But the issue of the land, and this issue actually, if you go to the answer, I've raised it so many times. I've said most of these houses, and I think almost all of them, are going to be constructed on government land. And there is a process when you want to transfer government land from government to private, so that the ownership changes from government to private. And that means the situation, the question we are asking is, in a situation where it will not be done properly then, it will mean that in future governments, because you know you might have another government where they don't believe in what is happening and claim that since this was public land, then we are getting all the houses to be government houses. And then that time you will have paid your money. It could cause a lot of confusion. So I think even as we think about construction, it will be good we see a concurrent process whereby as you construct the houses, also the land transfer is taking place. So that by the time I'm given the house, I'll get a title also, which indicates this is my house standing on my land. In that case, then I'll have no problem. But you remember the issue of the something we used to call the T-zones, the Kenya T-zones, where we carved some forest land.
The Nyayo T-zones.
The Nyayo T-zones, where we carved some forest land to and in the process, actually, Kenyans, who are the politicians mostly and the senior Kenyans in the government, also carved out of that land to private ownership. Instead of now T-zones, we know some of the Kenyans who own thousands of acres through that process. So we would not want us to see a situation where now we are converting public land to private, but in the process, a few Kenyans, and we know that it happens. You saw the issue of everything fake, 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 fake. We also have fake Kenyans who can easily get that land. You find, instead of changing the title to Sigei, they change the title 10 acres to Sigei and 20 to Makali. Makali who has no house in the neighborhood, just as a way of taking the public land. So I think this is a matter, and land matters are very emotive in this country. So I would want to see a process which is very transparent, so that this transfer is done in a way that nobody takes advantage of this process to get personal gain out of it. On the issue of the finance bill, it's unfortunate what the member of parliament said, because when you're in parliament, and my colleagues will agree with me, before you debate any bill, it's important you read the bill. And if you have not read a bill, the best thing is you don't participate in the debate because you have not read it. In that case, then you'll be able to make it. But you know what has happened, and we have said it many. And it's only Sigei who might not be able to agree with me because he's not in the National Assembly. The National Assembly, we have an habit where now the majority whip takes a piece of paper like as big as this, and he writes here, yes, no or yes, and then he shows the membership of Kenya Kwanza like this. So your work is just to say what is written here, without whether you have read or not. You just say what is written here, and if you don't say what is written here, the consequences can be there. So you better say what is written, and that's the problem we have in the House. The other thing I've realized is also very few members are taking time to spending time in the chamber. Mm-hmm. So most of the debate will take place when you are not there, and it puts you in an awkward position because you come only to say yes. Actually, there are many times people say yes without knowing what they are saying yes to. The speaker will just read the motion, and you hear people saying yeah, and they don't know what they are saying yes to, because they are not in the House to listen to the debate, because it is a debate which should inform your final decision. If you listen to the debate, you'll be able to say, does this make sense or it doesn't make sense? And that's the challenge we have. So when I see this, I'm not surprised being a member of parliament, because I sit in that parliament many hours, visit what is happening. But I think it calls for some improvement from our side, those who are members of parliament. Let's take time, in addition to so many other things we do outside parliament, also to sit in the plenary and listen to what has been discussed, so that we make decisions which will help this country to move to the future. But all said and done, yeah, there was also another cartoon which was indicating, I think it's the chair, Law Society of the new chair, Law Society of Kenya, who is reminding members in her speech, who did on Friday, in her speech, she did remind members of parliament that it is time that we also learn that parliament is independent. It's not part of executive, it's independent. So even as we make decisions, we need to be aware that this is an independent institution. We should be making independent decisions informed by evidence, facts on the table. Thank you.
All right. Briefly, let me just wind up on it, yes.
No, wind up quickly, but let's say I agreed with the 4 P's of Honorable Ruku. The only thing I'll say, before you finish the 4 P's, don't give the date of 1st of April. You must announce when you have finished all your planning. Remember, Honorable Nakumicha kept saying, by 1st of March, we'll start the collections. We sat here and said it won't happen. So that's what we are saying. I agree with you totally, but don't say 1st of April, because all you have said cannot be done by 1st of April. About the bills in Parliament, Honorable, I don't know whether fortunate or unfortunate, the 3 of us who are here in the National Assembly actually stay in the Senate. And I can say we actually all read, because we hear it, and I know there are times that even Honorable Ruku has wondered what is it we are doing. People do not actually read bills. However big it is, the most difficult and the biggest are normally miscellaneous, because you have to read a lot of other bills, you have to read pre-documents. So when people do not read these things, they pass them. And because of the small majority we have, another phenomenon has come in the House. And I think it is affecting both the what we call the opposition, the minority and the majority side. Since it is clear that it will pass, if there has been agreement elsewhere that it will pass, people, in my view, don't see the need to sit there and talk, because whatever you say, it will pass. So you find even on the majority side, there's a huge number when there's going to be a vote. The moment the vote is over, you don't see people, because they came to vote. And as he's saying, some people vote yes or no, and as you are going out, they ask you, what is it we were voting on?
They have no idea.
They have no idea. And I think it is the danger of what the new Law Society chair is saying, that we must realize, even if you are in the majority, that you are still independent from the executive. Of late, he'll agree, I've developed a new habit which I heard him say I didn't have, of calling no quorum. And I do it because I know we're discussing a very important thing, and because we are few, we have the opportunity to talk. But the majority of people representing Kenyans are not here.
Thank you.
I said, stop this discussion. You remember the last time, Thursday last week?
Yes.
We say Thursday morning, when we don't normally meet, we pass that we will meet in the morning, because they are very important bills that we want to pass. We start the sitting and there's no quorum. A bell is rung, and people come, suddenly we are all there. And once we come and the speaker starts, All of them walk
Everybody
out.
disappears again.
Because now they have been, and the speaker is supposed to be blind to quorum unless the speaker is reminded. So they were annoyed with him because I think it's Honorable Batandi who said there's no quorum, and I supported him. Why I'm supporting Honorable Kukan here today, people can't just come in to give quorum and go. The purpose of quorum, there are enough people to discuss the matter seriously. So if they just come in, then give the quorum, then go, and 4 or 5 of us remaining, then what we need is just change the quorums of the House. So we have that big problem in the House, that things are taken for granted, it will pass. For us in the minority, it is like upende usipende, it will pass. I think even the majority side, their decision has been made. Honorable, the chief whip will give a direction. It is not only a paper, Honorable Makali. There's another one I've noticed. He sits in front, and when the bill is read, if he says this, it passes. Then if he says that, it is passed. Now, all the members, and I know my friend here, why I agree with
that
him.
is not in the standing order.
Well, the standing order is not against it. There's nothing against it in the standing order. My friend here sometimes even refused and said, no, we want to debate. So that thing is dangerous. And let me say, what is the biggest problem? And I said it, Honorable Ruko, remember, people even shouted at me when I said, that is why very many of these our decisions are being invalidated in court. We are getting into another area where we are not even observing processes. People have not started taking decisions in Parliament to court on the basis of process. They are still going on the basis of principle, constitutionalism, and so on.
Thank you.
When they start saying, was the process followed?
followed.
A lot of bills we pass in Parliament will actually be nullified.
Right. I have
just-
here, also, I think the Deputy Majority Leader, Owen Baya, has been frustrated, if you can see. That today, I had to go to the tea area. This is where members of Parliament also congregate a lot. Library, the parking bay, and other areas to look for members to raise quorum, to save the private members' businesses. This is on the legislative mandate. Yeah, I think there's a problem.
Debal, yes. Allow me to also say something about the aspect of members of Parliament participating substantively in the process of lawmaking. It's quite unfortunate where a member would go and pronounce out there that I did not read the bill that was ultimately passed by Parliament. And it's true that the honorable members here from the National Assembly are saying a good number of our colleagues do not read the bills that are passed in Parliament or debated in Parliament. A similar scenario sometimes also affects us in the Senate. That is a fact. However, a very serious leader is expected and supposed to read, because how else can you go and talk about it when you have not read it? How else can you make a decision to vote for or against it if you have not read it? Because the assumption naturally is that you have read, you have understood, it serves your people in a positive way, and therefore that is the justification for you supporting it. It does not serve your people, and you have a right to vote against it. However, we have got now the politics side of it, where a bill is pushed, for example, by the majority. That's promoted by the majority leader, and therefore is allowed by law to lobby and ensure that his member supports a position of the government. That does not mean that you, as a member of that majority side, is blinded even to point out and criticize areas which you feel are against your interest, against your understanding, against some of the basic principles that involves in lawmaking. It therefore behoves upon us as members of both the majority and the minority side, who are legislators, to debate and criticize. That is why we are allowed to amend the law even in the third reading before we pass. We are allowed to say, look, this is why I want this particular bill to be amended. And I would like to encourage members to read. Sometimes it's better not to speak when you have not read. You will expose yourself so much. And that's why you find some of us speak less, but you are able to act or on the basis of what you have read and understood, it does not mean that, you know, even if the majority side is a government bill that I have been lobbied to vote for, I am entitled to criticize and say, I don't agree with such and such a provision. And it would have been better, it would serve Kenyans, it would serve the future of Kenya if we were to deal with it this way, if we were to amend it to accommodate this particular position. However, because I've been lobbied to, I'll vote for it and champion amendments upon its enactment. That is the only way to create involvement when we have read. But it's quite unfortunate. For instance, even for the deputy majority leader to say, look, I've had to go all the way to the T area to ask members to come and join. And by the way, that day was a private member's bill, where as an individual member, if I have a bill that I'm promoting, I would encourage members to come and participate. Unlike when it's a government bill where you are lobbied even prior and beforehand. And in most cases, like in the Senate, we've got a page where we as senators always get the business that is going to come by the day, and in most cases also chairpersons of various committees. I chair the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. If there is any bill that has gone through my committee, we normally have a report from the committee. And what we normally do is also to highlight some of the very specific and common or dominant aspects that we feel members should be involved in participating. We normally highlight them and share in the group so that members can now get an executive summary of the very pertinent areas that we would encourage them to read. But of course, not everybody else also will read that. And lastly, Dibal, you asked something about the land question, the ownership in this affordable housing program.
Indeed.
I would like to encourage us
and the gazettement that was also raised.
Yes. I would like to encourage us and Kenyans to read, even for example, in this particular one, the Constitution of Kenya, Chapter 5, that speaks about land and environment, and in particular, Article 61, it talks about the land. The land in Kenya is owned by Kenya or Kenyans as Kenyans, communities as communities, individuals as individuals. So there is what the old land question history of Professor Okoth Ogendo. I know Dr. Nyigali probably knows him. He's the custodian of the land question in Kenya. That's my 101 law in school. The government has a right to compulsorily acquire. They can acquire private land. But in this case, there is what we call sectional property title. And we are saying the government is releasing this title to a private developer, right? To do what? To develop without having ownership. Once developed, now it is sold to Kenyans. Sectional properties. There will therefore be the question of the county government, the national government, the developer, and the owner of the land. Not the owner of the land, sorry, the owner of the house that has been constructed. This owner will be owning a sectional title to the property. Whether the land was donated by the county government, like in most cases now, because this is what's happening, county governments availed public land for purposes of developing these houses. So it is the same question I was saying. When Kenyans have familiarized themselves fully with these provisions, one will know that if I start from point A, ultimately I will get my sectional title in point Z with the property. And of course now those regulations, which by the way, the Act says the Cabinet Secretary will be required to publish regulations relevant to this Act within 30 days. So the law came into force on 19th of March. By 19th of April, we will be having regulations in place that will put flesh into a lot of the implementation of this Act.
Thank you. All right, let us just wind up on that a bit and move on to what I think is a pertinent issues as well regarding the Nadco report.
I just wanted to say something on the gazettement. I think what the caller did is, if the process is not done properly, so that even the process of acquisition is not done properly, and you end up that people go, and many years, 20 years, then they discover that, oh, you know, it was not done. You see, there's been a problem with houses now, where land changed hands, some were forest land, and the process of changing, of degazetting them so that they can now be alienated to private people was not done. And it is the fifth owner who gets caught up with this. So I think that really is something we have to make in place. We must put in place and make sure these pieces of land are properly processed, so that when you have your sectional title, you don't get surprised 20 years later that no, the process was not done. And that time you are saying,
I can assure you, a case in point has been the forest land
in
Langata.
Yes.
And we've seen, yes, this was done during the National Coalition government. A portion of land was given there. We have successive government coming and new policies. We saw what happened with the CS of environment as well. That people now need to evacuate from that particular, because the gazettement still is under the forestry land, isn't it? Right?
I can assure you that...
So how then do we get reassurance that you have all these policies, yes, but intact? The documents, they are not, complementary to what the situation is on the ground.
Yes, I can assure you that this is one of those policies that the government has a lot of goodwill across the country. One of the reasons why, for example, you've got the issue on the aspect of the Langata forest land is because when you look at the process from when it started, there was already a dispute immediately when there was an alleged degazettement from it being a forest, and it immediately translated into private land. In this case, in the affordable housing program, remember I'm saying that when you look at how the whole program is being implemented, cutting across the country, it is not transferring public land to private ownership. It is still public for purposes of the affordable housing program. And I know, and I can assure you that in 10, 20 years' time, the story will be different, because people will be owning that sectional title on the basis of a process that began from public land, whether owned by the county government on behalf of the community, or has been acquired from a government agency.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. Honorable Ruku, you want to say something?
There's an issue which you mentioned, the power on fertilizers.
Yeah, we'll come back to fertilizers a bit. I wanted just to get a bit of a housing, what is happening with the Nadco report before we go there, just briefly, because there seems to be suggestions, especially from the camp of Azimio, that we have legislators from Kenya Kwanza who are playing delaying tactics with the Nadco report. Remember, I think that the days are ticking. 45 days, they're peeling off the calendar very quickly. And they've alleged that, the committee, especially being led by Honorable Wakili here, again, he's the one who's delaying these tactics. You give much premium also to the impeachment. So they're reading some foul play in the installation of this Nadco report. Baruch, you want to say something before you come to...
I'm always very honest as far as the Nadco report is concerned. And my stand is always that the premises of Nadco report was a wrong premises in first place. And therefore, in law, or even not only in law, but in principle, anything that has a wrong foundation cannot be a good product at the end of the day. The foundation of Nadco report, from my stand, was that Raila Odinga and his team decided to go to street because of high cost of living. And it culminated to lest both sides talk. And they went to Bomas to talk, and they came up with a report. The basis was high cost of living. If you look at the Nadco report, there is less of high cost of living addressed in that report. So there are other issues, many issues on leader of opposition, leader of position to be well mainstreamed within the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, and to have a seat in Parliament, Prime Cabinet Secretary also to have a seat in Parliament, the change of law when it comes to amendment of Election Act, IBC is critical. And there is a law as far as IBC is concerned. And I'm a bit disappointed from where I sit, because we are talking about constitution of IBC instead of looking at the software of IBC. We are looking at the hardware of IBC without changing the election law fundamentally, in a serious manner. IBC, regardless, even if Dr. Nyika here become the commissioner of IBC and is supporting Raila Odinga, and my brother here become the commissioner of IBC and at the same time are in Parliament, we will still have the same problems. So we need to address things critically in terms of the law which make us make noise at every general election. And we can only do that by proper, amendment of the Election Act so that we can give Kenya a rebirth. And I have come up with an amendment of the Election Act. Actually, at the moment, should be going to the committee for pre-publication scrutiny. And what I'm proposing is we have to change the definition of what a ballot paper is. If we get the definition of ballot paper from the one go from the preamble of the Election Acts and change it completely, then all other laws will be in tandem with what the definition of ballot paper is and also with the definition of what a ballot box is. I'm calling for overhaul in terms of automation of our election processes and ensuring different bodies involved, they talk to each other. They are able to connect and share data, whether it is IBC, whether it is Kenya National Examination Council, because we have many cases where people are running for positions and they don't have qualified certifications. Then also we link the death process, what do you call it, death registration with IBC, so that you can be able to know how many people have died within a course of 5 years who are voters, and they are automatically removed from the register. There are many claims that dead people are voting in this country. How do we clean up all these things? We can only clean up these things if there is a proper law, amendment of IBC. But if you look at the Nadco report, it's talking about commissioners. Even if we put commissioners from other countries, they come and become commissioners of IBC. Even if they're coming from, and the election law remains the same. What are we talking about? We will be going in circles. So the other critical thing, which is political, is that Raila Odinga is out of the scene. He's a main man as far as Nadco report is concerned. It was done, it was written, having Raila Odinga in mind. At the moment, he's out of the scene. He's going for African Union chairmanship.
When the center does not hold, things fall apart.
So if Raila Odinga, he was seen as the position which we are creating for Raila Odinga is leader of opposition in Parliament. Now, he's not interested in that. He's interested in another seat in the African Union Commission. Surely, that report...
Let's hear from Makali. Okay, let's hear from Makali. Because this is...
But he's still a bit hot.
What Mheshimiwa is saying is very unfortunate.
But it's a fact.
You can't say the Nadco, the whole issue of reason behind Nadco was just Raila Odinga. We all know where we came from.
There are almost 9 bills.
This country was burning, and we all know that. As a result of that, we realized that there was need for dialogue. People got to a level where they could discuss the issues. And as a result of that, then we have the team which has come up with the report. I think what is happening at the Bao is that when you look at the Nadco report, it has proposed 9 different bills which address 9 different issues. And these issues are important in this country to be sorted out. If you look at all of them, more so the electoral reforms, because the reason why we have been going to the streets after every election is because of the issues with the election, the electoral process. So we are saying, why can't we reform the electoral process in a way that in future there will be no need for Kenya to go to the streets? Because anytime we go to the streets, it is very expensive for this country from an economic perspective, social perspective, and also political perspective. But what is happening, and I think that's what Honorable Rugu is not saying. The truth of the matter is, the Kenya Kwanza wing of this government thought that they will be able to manage as Mio using delaying tactics. And that's what is happening now. That's why you see the report has been brought to Parliament.
That's not true.
And the Sigei and the team, because Sigei is one of the people who has
I'm
supposed to be
actually
sitting.
I'm actually the chairperson.
Yeah, I know, Jailak.
I don't want to allow you to mislead
And you have another
Kenyans.
Jailak in the National Assembly.
Assembly.
So what is happening? They are imagining in their minds.
Misleading
They are
Kenyans.
imagining that they can
Allow me
imagine
to
that they
correct
can
that before
manage.
it sinks into the minds of Kenyans.
No, but you will have your chance. You have your chance.
But you will have, you know,
He has already.
the problem is.
But you are saying
The
Raila
problem
is
is
the
that
Nadco report, and you have allowed him
he is
to
not
finish.
in the Nadco report. Honorable Ruku is not in
But
the
he has
Nadco
said Raila is the
committee.
Nadco report, and you have
He's
allowed him to
entitled to
finish.
that, and that is what he said in his opening statement. He said that allow me, because the framework, the basis of the Nadco committee and the creation of that was with his own different views. Now, the wrong and the thing that I don't want Honorable
But this is my personal opinion.
It's not true. It's
My
not true
personal-
that
Are you saying it's
we are
official
derailing-
position or what?
No. It is not true that we are derailing the process. We have had 2 meetings, and in our last meeting last Wednesday, I was present. Honorable the chairperson of Justice and Legal Affairs, my senior colleague,
Morogaro.
Honorable Murugara was present.
Yes.
I and Senator Dulo, as well as Honorable Kajwang were present. It is the members of the opposition that did not raise quorum, because the JLAC of the National Assembly is supposed to bring 5 members so that they raise quorum. The Senate brings 3 members. I had 3 members, all from Kenya Kwanza. The rest, the chairperson from the National Assembly, Honorable Murugara, was present. His other members. The only member who came into the meeting was Honorable Kajwang.
And the Kajwang is, for your information, from our side.
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
So the other 4, the other 4 belong to your side. We're
The
not
other
able
2
to come.
members came in. So it is wrong to create the impression that we
There's
are
a delay.
delaying the process when we have created a framework for this engagement. We actually have done that. We have already.
How I
bills
wish today
published.
you would allowed me to finish and
my-
Carlos had the same.
Yeah.
So that
I
being the
thought-
chair, you respond to the comprehensive issues.
I
It's not
respond.
triggering the guard.
All right. Honorable Sigei was the one who was talking about decorum.
Because
I thought you were
I
about
wanted to
decorum,
correct-
that
I
should not
wanted to correct
interfere.
the
But
misconception.
what I
It's an exception.
Now I can allow him to
Let him
finish.
finish.
Then I
What
will
happens?
rebut that.
Zimbabwe.
You get a chance.
But do it within the framework of we haven't derailed, because we've had only 2
No,
meetings.
the bar basically. I thought from the way we have been operating, and this case is always here with me, is that it would allow me to push my case. And since he's the chair,
I think
he will come and let me
he had a
respond
burning
to-
issue. He had a burning issue.
I had a
Finish
finish
off
of
there.
burning. I couldn't hold.
Maybe I touched the live wire. But anyway, what we are saying is, Dibao, I think this report, the Nadco report, has actually led to some peace in this country. It has resulted in peace in this country. And I think all of us as Kenyans, irrespective of their political affiliation, we need to take advantage of this situation we are in now, that we have peace, to develop issues and systems which will push this country on this peace route.
Thank you.
That's what I think.
Thank you.
So whether it will be strategy to play around with our minds, whether it is being done genuinely, we are saying this is something we should not run away from. And that's why I don't agree with Honorable Ruku at all. The issue of saying this report was for Raila, and since it's going to AU, we shelve it. We put it in the shelves. That is far from the truth. Azimio, as other capable leaders, including my party leader, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, who is ready to take over if Raila leaves. And we are saying, as a team, we will remain united. So it's not a matter of doing this for individuals. It's a matter of doing this for the country.
Thank you.
And more so, public interest.
Thank you. Honorable, you briefly on this. We have other 2 issues before we...
Simply, if we have agreed on an issue, like we agreed on Nadco, let's follow it through. Now, it is bad, whatever the concept was, whatever it was meant for, it couldn't possibly have been meant for one person. It would be actually totally unacceptable if the other side was doing it specifically to appease Honorable Raila. Then that is what is wrong. Now that we have agreed, we passed in Parliament, there are 9 bills. In my view, I will ask the Honorable Sigei that we fast track this thing so that those 9 bills will give us a chance even to correct what we think was wrong in the whole concept. So that we now, it doesn't matter whether Honorable Raila is in Kenya, whether it's in AU, we must put it, the positions are what is important, not the people who fill them. So that it is now our duty, going through the 9 bills, to make sure that it serves the the country and what we need.
Fantastic. I think that's well said. Let's hear from
Yes.
Chair. You can wind up on it.
I
then
will
move
wind
to other
up
issues of
by
fertilizer.
correcting the wrongs which were stated by my colleague, Honorable Makali, and also agreeing with him as he was closing that though Honorable Ruku has said the basis of this Nadco was one man, Raila Odinga, which is true when we want to be honest. It is Raila who took us to the streets. It's Raila who said this is what we want. It is us whom we said, you know what, for posterity, we want to make Kenya a better place. When all this began, now Nadco became, remember it started with our group, which was called a bipartisan. Then later on transformed when they said that they have sent team 2 to the bipartisan, which is actually not the case again. Then it transformed into Nadco. And the Nadco team now, though it began on the basis of the interest that had Raila in place, it mutated, and in a very good way, to bigger and better and objective issues about Kenyans. And that mutation has now led to the Nadco report that speaks to so many issues which are very good for the people of Kenya in future. The creation of some of these offices, the reforms in the electoral area, in the electoral sector, in the laws affecting the 2/3 gender rule that has been a pain for a very long time. So that mutation has progressed into something positive for the people of Kenya. That is where we are headed to. Now, when it began in the month of August last year, it ultimately gave us a report. In February 21st and 22nd, that report was placed before Parliament, both National Assembly and the Senate, and both houses adopted the report. In fact, for the very first time, I recall listening to the majority leader of the Senate as well as the majority leader of the National Assembly when they went to Abahil, Raila's office, saying that this is the first time. And
Capitol Hill.
Capitol Hill, yes. And that shows the extent of the objectivity of the whole process. And when Kalonzo was in State House, you must have heard him speaking, saying, look, I'm here because this Nadco report is a good thing for the people of Kenya. And all of us have agreed that it is good, if only we also extend the goodwill and the objectivity of the report that has come in. So our joint committee have had 2 sessions. The first session, we sat back and agreed on a framework on a way forward. And out of the 8 bills, which have already, by the way, been published, 4 of them to be brought out in the National Assembly, 4 of them to be in the Senate. And among other things, of all these 8 laws, we are also now working on a framework where we are saying part of the multisectoral working group, remember the multisectoral group that was chaired by CS Aisha Jumwa, also had issues, and in particular the aspect of the 2/3 gender rule. They have brought in a report. They have had an addendum which also included an amended bill. And we are considering that one. In our last meeting on Wednesday 20th, which I said we were unfortunately unable to raise quorum, the 2 chairpersons agreed that we needed to now set up from our secretariat a very specific framework and timeline, because we're looking at 45 days. And Dibal, we are very committed to make sure that we get back to the House the bills and the report of the joint committee within the 45 days. Why? Because we know a lot of these proposals in the Nadco report are good for changes in the way we do things, the way we look at politics in Kenya, and the entire aspects which were raised by the people of Kenya when they submitted their respective reports to the Nadco committee. So believe you me, and I want to give the comfort to my colleague CPA here, Honorable Ali, as well as Dr. Nikal, and Kenyans, that the Nadco report and the joint committee are very, very, aimed at making sure that within the 45 days we have shared the bills for the people of Kenya through their representatives in Parliament to enact those legislations to change the way we see our politics. And it will not necessarily bring down the cost of living if we don't, as Kenyans, work hard at our level as individuals.
Right. We look forward to seeing that being effected as well. I wanted just to turn the crack to what is happening with the fertilizer, to just get a view from the member himself of Mbeere North, Geoffrey Ruku, who has moved a notion, he has moved a motion seeking to introduce the model that will See Kenya buy subsidized fertilizer from countries that have a surplus of critical farming input. The motion is awaiting debate in the National Assembly. An excerpt of the motion reads, this is the fertilizer government-to-government deal. It reads, this House therefore resolves that the government through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development and its agencies adopt the government-to-government model in the acquisition and supply of fertilizers by identifying potential partner countries that have surplus and quality fertilizers. Mr. Ruku said that the cost, quantity and quality of the fertilizer and subsequently cost of production of food crops and cash crops including coffee, tea and miraa had increased partly due to a big markup put by private suppliers. This, Honorable Ruku says, poses a threat to the country's food security at a time agriculture contributes about a quarter of Kenya's GDP. Under the G2G arrangement, the government will buy and distribute subsidized fertilizer through Kenya Farmers Association, Kenya Tea Development Agency, Coffee Board of Kenya, and Kenya Planters Cooperative Union, among other agencies. He argued that the G2G model has been noted to lower cost of products, and there are countries willing to enter G2G agreement. So we want just to get it from you straight from the horse's mouth, and I can see you have to put miraa there.
True to the roots. And
Miraa had to be taken.
All politics is local.
All politics is local. But you can shed light to this. In light of where we're coming from, G2G.
Yes.
Yes.
Dipa Mugoka and Miraa is the roots, is the foundation of our rural economy. Without it, the economies in our region, that is in Meru, in Tharaka and in Nambu County, it will be in tatters. I want to put this into context, Dipa.
Briefly, because also we have time. I think we shall discuss it sufficiently next week as well. But just give us
Let
the
me
highlights.
give some statistics.
Some bare minimum.
33% of GDP of the Republic of Kenya is supported by agriculture. That's 3%. But also 27% indirectly through other linkages. In terms of employment, 40% of employment is supported by agriculture. And 70% of employment we have in the rural areas is supported by agriculture sector. 70% in our rural areas. So it's an extremely critical, essential sector which we have to invest in. We have to look into this sector in a serious manner. As the leaders of the country, as technocrats, we have to put our energies as far as agricultural sector is concerned. There are challenges which have been happening within the sector. One, inadequate funding of the sector has been there over the years, and also logistical challenges. And that's why Kibaki came up with a very elaborate program of building roads from our rural areas to ensure the logistics of our produce is able to get to the market. Another challenge has always been quality fertilizer. That has been a challenge, is still a challenge even now. We have seen what is happening in the market. There are claims of fake fertilizers. There are claims of some Kenyans from Gilgil putting sand into sacks and selling it as fertilizer, all manner of things. So we have to address these things because it's a challenge. But also, the history tells us that in 2009, that is when the government of then started talking about fertilizer subsidy and policies for subsidizing fertilizer. In 2020, the government launched e-voucher or electronic voucher as far as fertilizer is concerned. After President Ruto won the election, said, we are going to further subsidize the fertilizer from 5,000 to 2,500. And it's happening. We are getting at 2,500. Now, is there something which we can do more than that? I'm saying yes, there's something we can do more than that. There are countries out there who have become self-sufficient as far as food security is concerned, or food is concerned. We must get it right as far as food in our country is concerned. We cannot be able, every year in, year out, we are complaining of lack of food in different parts of this country. We have to get it right. How do we get it right? We have to get it right by ensuring we have farm inputs. One of the very critical farm input is fertilizer. Not forgetting about the the farm inputs like, what do you call it? The one you use in farming, plowing, maybe mechanized way of small scale, the drip irrigation aspect of it, ensuring we have water for our farms, ensuring also we have some value chain processes within our rural areas. So we have to get it right as far as fertilizer is concerned. How do we get it right as far as fertilizer is concerned? At the moment, the logistics of getting fertilizer from Russia, from Poland, there's a country there, Poland and Russia, I'm forgetting the name of that country, and the president came here, I remember, as we continue, all the way to Kenya is a huge logistical process. Getting it from Mombasa to Nairobi and to the villages is another huge logistical nightmare. Now, how do we ensure these costs are minimal so that this fertilizer can go down from 2,500 to say 500 shilling per bag or 1,000 shilling per bag? We can only do that if we enable and we strengthen the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister in charge of Agriculture, the government, that please go directly to Cyprus, for instance, negotiate with the president and the minister in charge of that area, get the fertilizer, let it come to Kenya at minimal possible cost. Government of the Republic of Kenya is still subsidizing fertilizer in terms of billions of Kenyan shilling.
Thank you. For the interest of time, and yeah, I know, for the interest of time, I think we shall pick it up next week because I think there are many questions also will be raised regarding the government-to-government arrangements. We've seen with the oil as well. And following the procurement rules, these conventions on how also we should use government-to-government procurement. Unless there's a critical necessity, there's a crisis, there's no other supplier who can actually do it, we are constrained of time, there is emergency, that would be another option of going to government procurement model. But I think we shall rest that for next week so that we don't do just the entire motion disservice.
Is it a motion or a bill?
It's a motion. It's a motion. It's a motion. It's not a bill.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, briefly.
Because as you put it, bow. The G to G, even our experience with the petroleum products or the oil products was not good. And the reason why it was not good is basically what you have seen. Issues of accountability, issues of competitiveness. Because once you do that, then you lock the market out of the whole process. And you are not even sure you are going to get the best value for what you are paying. So, to me, I think this is a topic you can pick next week and then do more justice to it by discussing more details.
Thank you. I think I've lost your mic. Allow me just to jump you. I'll come to Dr. Njikala. I can't hear you, so I'll just give you some closing remarks as well, Mheshimiwa. Yeah.
Mine is very simple. You know, our colleagues have bright ideas and they sound good. And the problem is implementation. If you talk to G2G, I agree with you. What happened with the petroleum? What happened with cooking fat that we produce?
Yes.
Again, the process of implementation. Now, even the fertilizer we got, we reduced the price, I think, from 7,000 to about 3,000. The problem, again, came recently of distribution. So all these things, they have good ideas, put them in place. But remember that they have no consequence until they touch the people on the ground.
Thank you.
And that is the process that we need.
Let's leave it at that. Let's get also your closing remarks.
Well, today we haven't touched health at all. But
it's still a developing story.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something. I'll go back on the same thing, implementation. Whatever we do, let's plan that at the implementation it is workable. Let's not rely on the political rhetoric that makes it sound good. We must go to implementation. The health is a story, but it is touching the three most important things. Human resource. You remember we also had the problem with supplies, KEMSA. We had the problem with money, chief. Now, there's not just one. All these things are actually the thing that the implementation process is an issue with health.
Thank you.
If a head of the ministers as a whole cannot distinguish between doctors and students, we have a problem.
We have a problem. All right, let's hear from Honorable.
Thank you. I'm shocked that you're saying you're giving our closing remarks. I thought just within...
our time actually is out. We're supposed to be out.
All right, fine. Now, closing remarks from the motion that Honorable who is
in fact, for you, I wanted actually to talk about, because last week you missed, and there's a very interesting editorial cartoon.
Yes.
If my director may just pick it up for you now to comment on it.
All right, very well.
In Bomet,
yes.
And we've seen so far, this is the cartoon, right? The 11th command, thou shalt not heckle, right?
Thou shalt.
Especially in Kenya Kwanza strongholds. This was happening in Bomet. We missed you last week. The president had called a meeting regarding this. There are 2 people who have been nabbed by the ear, singled out for this. And we wonder under what law? Just briefly, as we're winding up.
Okay, one. Okay,
or we can reserve it for next week as well. So that
yes, but I'll say something about it. One, there's a politician, whether a junior politician or a senior politician for that matter. There are 2 things. Number one, Kenyans, supporters and electorates have a right to jeer and cheer, right? In this particular incident, the president was cheered big time by the people of Bomet.
He was cheered.
He was cheered, yes. Though now some were jeered. Now, the context of all this is because when there is no service to the people of Bomet were complaining, saying, look, we are actually within the town center. The roads are bad, there is no water, you know, there is no floodlights, and a lot of it. I know we can have a conversation about it now. There are 2 people, actually, not 2, there are 3 who've been arrested and charged for some funny offenses. When you look at actually one of the offense, the law says that even if you were to be, that is I think section 94 of the penal code, it is an offense that you are not supposed to be put in. But because of political comments that were made, the police had to save their skin and their jobs. But in fact, they have asked me to appear, and I've been asking. I'm a lawyer by profession.
Yeah, under which law? Yes.
Under which law do I appear, and what do I do? But I will appear to tell them the truth because I need to teach them and show them that this is what Kenyans are entitled to do.
Thank you. Right. Honorable Ruku, briefly,
in the books of history, when they will be written, President William Ruto will be referred as the parent of this nation. We have founders, fathers. But William Ruto will be one. He'll have a big chapter on history as a parent of the nation because he's the man who is going to oversee the transformation of this nation through his very innovative ideas which he has come up with.
Thank you. All right, Honorable Makali, briefly, your closing remarks.
Let's pray that what he says happens because we can be having very good ideas. You know, he has not implemented. These are just theories. I wish he was saying that at the 10th year of his leadership. This is just we are one. Kenyans are crying all over the place. I don't know where Ruku gets some of these statements.
Is there inspirational?
He's one of the Kenyans.
Thank you, guys.
It's inspirational.
I think it's important I say this. Us who are sitting on this table who are leaders, and the others who are in their offices, Kenyans out there are suffering because of lack of medical services and also the poor Kenyans. Can something be done to save the health of our people?
Thank you, indeed. And we do hope something will come out from our negotiations as well this week. Thank you for your valued company, guys. I really do appreciate your input this morning. A lot of issues we've raised. Some of them we'll pick up next week. But I thank you for your input and your faithfulness. Despite the fact that we had rains in the morning, I was a bit worried. If you are not sure, people might say, can I just send a text? Right, but nonetheless, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your valued company. News There is up next.